Hi guys, are senior members of the Trump administration dumb or just pretending? So the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, remember him, he was answering questions from US senators, and he sort of explained Donald Trump's approach to tariffs. Now, we've been under the impression that Donald Trump imposed the tariffs some time ago in order to force other countries to lower theirs on imports from the US. Then it sort of changed to forcing other countries to reduce non-tariff barriers on imports from America, such as lowering or changing standards to suit the US. However, as you'll see, Lutnick hints that even if a country like Vietnam were to eliminate all tariffs on US imports and remove non-tariff barriers, that wouldn't be sufficient for Trump. What he wants instead is something nonsensical. Have a listen.
If Vietnam, for example, came to you tomorrow and said, okay, Mr. Secretary, you win. We're going to remove all tariffs and all trade barriers. Would the United States please do the same? Would you accept that deal?
Absolutely not. Okay. Absolutely not. That would be the silliest thing we could do.
Why is that?
Vietnam has a $125 billion exports to us and imports from us $12.5 million. And you're thinking, Vietnam exports $125 billion?
I'm aware of the figures, but tell me.
But where do they get it from? They buy $90 billion from China, then they mark it up and send it to us.
So you
They're just a pathway of China to us.
You wouldn't accept that deal?
No, it's a terrible deal. We're the one with money. We're the one with the store. Of course they want us to take down.
What's the purpose of reciprocity then? Is reciprocity not one of your goals? Are you telling the president that we shouldn't seek reciprocity? If that's what you're telling him, why are you trying to do these trade deals?
What do we want? We want to encourage Vietnam to produce products they're great at producing.
But I want to get back to reciprocity. You just said you don't believe in it. You don't accept reciprocity as a goal. What are you negotiating in these trade deals?
Why would we open our bank account and their bank account when ours is 10 times bigger?
Why are you negotiating trade deals? You're trying to get other countries to lower their tariffs and trade barriers in return for us lowering ours.
That's true for the things that they'll take from us. That's
called reciprocity.
Of course.
So are you or are you not seeking reciprocity in these trade deals?
We are absolutely seeking reciprocity with respect to things that can be reciprocal.
But you just said,
when they're importing from China and sending it to us,
you just said that if a country came to you and offered you the ultimate reciprocity, no tariffs, no trade barriers, in return for us doing the same, you would reject that.
Of course, because they buy from China and send it to us. Don't you agree with me?
Suppose they said we won't buy from China.
Now we're talking. If it was Vietnam,
would you accept that deal?
We would consider it. For what things? For
what
products?
What would you want to change?
Well, there are certain products we want to reshore. We don't want other people making them. We want to make pharmaceuticals here. Right. We need to protect ourselves.
My goodness, this guy is insane. Or he's pretending to be. I don't know which it is, and I don't know which is actually worse. He's trying to suggest that Vietnam should buy from the United States, or Vietnam should not buy from China. If Vietnam is not buying from China, then who is it buying from? Probably he believes the United States. But there's a massive problem here. There are two massive problems. First of all, location. Vietnam is very far away from the United States. It does most of its trade with its neighbors. So it doesn't make sense for it to replace China with the United States or whoever Howard Lutnick is suggesting. Probably the United States here. That's a non-starter. You do most of your trade with your neighbors. The United States does most of its trade with Canada and with Mexico. The UK does most of its trade with the EU. This is normal. Now, the other point, maybe it's something forgotten by a billionaire like Howard Lutnick, is that the average wages in Vietnam inhibit people's ability to buy stuff from the United States. For example, in the United States, the average monthly salary is about $4,400. In Vietnam, it's $440. Bit of a difference there. So if you want Vietnamese people to buy stuff from the United States, well, they're going to have to increase their wages in order to afford those things. GDP per capita in the United States is $85,000, while in Vietnam it's $4,000. Completely different economies, completely different countries. So what does Howard Lutnick want? These tariffs were supposed to be about, well, what we're going to do is impose these tariffs on other countries to lower their tariffs on us and to lower their barriers to trade. But the biggest barrier to trade in Vietnam is the fact that people don't earn the same salaries as the United States. What you're selling, they can't generally afford. And what you're selling, they can buy cheaper from their neighbors. So why would they buy from the United States? It's nonsensical. This is what I said at the beginning. It doesn't make any sense. Now, he also mentioned about reshoring, but they don't have a policy, an economic policy in place to help the reshoring. They're not helping businesses to reshore. They're just saying, well, you need to reshore. What we're going to do is impose the tariffs in order for you to reshore. A real serious government would put in place measures to encourage businesses to open in the US, to relocate to the US, and then impose tariffs later on, or suggest what we're going to do is we're going to impose tariffs, but in 5 years' time or in 2 years' time, to give time for companies to relocate, to say, this is coming, you need to prepare. But they put the cart before the horse. What they've done instead is put in the tariffs and then said, now you have to relocate. It's too late then. It's nonsensical. The only positivity I can see here, the only positive thing I can see, is that Republican senators and Republican politicians are starting to lose their fear of Donald Trump. They're starting to stand up to him. Not a huge amount, but they're starting to lose some of that fear. And this is what Donald Trump needs. He needs the fear of God in these people. Elon Musk is gone, and the administration is starting to fall apart. There'll be probably a reshuffle, new people will be brought in. But Donald Trump is losing his grip, which means that he'll become more and more desperate and more unpopular. And this is going to make it more difficult for him to push his policies through, because Republicans will start to rebel. And this is what we need to see. But his administration, the people in charge, don't know what the hell they're doing. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.